respected teachers, and dear students. I am indeed very happy to be in Vishwabharati here today. My first visit to this unique institution. Also happy to be participating in the one-day symposium on research in chemistry. This morning, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a new subject called crystal engineering, which over the last 20 to 30 years has established itself as one of the mainstream areas in chemistry today. Vice Chancellor correctly pointed out that chemistry is a subject a little bit between physics and biology. The number of other subjects that are influenced by chemistry is really large, as she pointed out. I have referred to chemistry as the middle kingdom in one of my articles. It has also been called the central discipline. And great many people use chemistry ideas in their own work in other subjects. From the epistemological point of view, thinking in chemistry is a very unique blend of the qualitative and the quantitative. It is a subject in which, if one wants to excel, one must be equally comfortable with quantitative and qualitative thinking. And this explains also its connection with so many other subjects. And this is what makes it very apparent that only certain very special kinds of people tend to like chemistry. Well, I've seen so many students of chemistry or even senior researchers, they always said that right from the very beginning we knew we wanted to study only chemistry. I have seen this thing again and again. So those who are attracted to chemistry, it's a small number. I think the people who get attracted to physics, biology and all are generally much, much larger. And I think it comes down to this, people who are comfortable, they know when to go quantitative and when to go qualitative. That's the thing. And that's what makes chemistry also very unpredictable. It also makes it intellectually very stimulating. And the difference between art and science sometimes becomes very thin in chemistry. Now, it is a hard science, all right. It's not a soft science. But there is enough enigma in the subject that those who get attracted to it and become practitioners of the subject, they don't want to go anywhere else after that. That is a unique subject, and of course I am talking to an audience largely of chemists, so I think I am not telling you anything new. So let us see this crystal engineering. What is crystal engineering? There is a textbook which I co-authored with Professor Vittal of Singapore and Professor Ramanan of IIT Delhi in 2011. But the earlier monograph which I wrote in 1989, which sort of, I would say, kicked off the formal beginnings of this subject. There are three very important ideas in crystal engineering. An understanding of interactions, intermolecular. In the context of crystal packing, intermolecular interactions itself is a vast topic. But the understanding of these interactions in the context of crystal packing is what I am talking about. When molecules come together, it's a form of recognition, mutual recognition, to form a crystal. It is these intermolecular interactions that bring them together, and these interactions are of different strengths, different angular dependencies, and different directional properties. Some taper off very slowly, some end very quickly with increasing distance. So you have to know about these interactions in the context of packing. And the next phase is using or utilizing such understanding in the design. So there is a design strategy, that's why it's called engineering. All kinds of engineering involve some sort of a design. There is a design, and you use this knowledge of the interactions in the design strategy. And why do you do this design? To get new properties, physical and chemical properties. So there are three phases in this crystal engineering. Understanding interactions, using this understanding to obtain a design strategy for a particular kind of crystal structure, which in turn gives certain properties which are required. Now, since properties seem to depend on the crystal structure, remember the final goal was the properties. And we may say, as a general approximation, that if the structure is different, the property will be different. I'll show you towards the very end of my talk why this may not necessarily be so. But that's why I'm using the word generally. Generally is a very wonderful word that scientists use. Scientists never use words like always, never. These words are very, most scientists won't use. Generally is a wonderful, it includes everything and nothing. That's why I was very careful. Generally, properties are connected with structure. And we are talking here about molecular crystals. Crystal engineering generally has to do with organic crystals, metal organic, basically molecular crystals, not extended solids, not ionic solids. So I must make it clear in the beginning that we are not talking about ionic or extended solids. It's only the molecular solids we are talking about. Now, so organic chemists typically, or organometallic chemists, they know how to make molecules. They are very comfortable and familiar with making molecules. So the main problem in crystal engineering is, given the molecular structure, can we predict or can we make some approximate idea, assumptions on what the crystal structure is going to look like? Because it is a particular crystal structure that we need, and we want to select a particular molecule that will give that particular crystal structure. So, I say it's a molecule to crystal problem. What are the connections between molecular structure and crystal structure? These connections, as we shall see very shortly, are not at all straightforward. And herein lies the intellectual challenge of the subject. Now here is a very simple molecule that all of us know. This is benzoic acid. And we have the carboxylic group there, C double bond O, single bond OH. Now what happens when two benzoic acid molecules get together? Generally, this is what happens. The second molecule approaches so that the carboxylic OH group of one tries to go near the carbonyl C double bond O of the other one. And then the pattern is a sort of a symmetrical symmetrical pattern, and we can complete this by putting these famous dot dot dots, which are the hydrogen bonds. So this is the structure of benzoic acid. Actually, in most condensed phases, in liquid benzoic acid, in the gas phase also this dimer exists. Certainly it exists in the crystal. So far so good. Now let's go to an even simpler compound. And this is CH3COOH, and this is acetic acid. Now, what you've really done is you've taken away the phenyl group and you've put in the methyl group. What does acetic acid look like in the crystal? Sure, the second molecule comes, and the third, and sure you can put the hydrogen bonds. But see, now it looks totally different. Instead of getting the closed dimer pattern, you have an infinite pattern of OHO hydrogen bonds, and the overall, shall we say, supramolecular pattern of molecules is very, very different. Now, if we do a bookkeeping of hydrogen bonds, you can say that for every acid molecule there are 2 hydrogen bonds in both cases. So it's not that you are suffering from a lack of hydrogen bonds in either of these 2 cases. In both cases it is the same. But the arrangement of molecules is entirely different. In other words, although the main intermolecular interactions involve the carboxylic group, all compounds having a carboxylic group need not necessarily have the same crystal structure. So you can't therefore use the simple functional group approach, which is the cornerstone of molecular chemistry, molecular organic chemistry. Now clearly the difference between the crystal behavior of benzoic acid and acetic acid lies in that alkyl or aryl group, but in a way that we are not able to make out just as yet. There is some difference that C6H5 versus CH3 is playing. There is some role there, has to be, otherwise, this is not like some magic or something. Now, what exactly is happening? Many people have talked about these issues. I won't waste much time, but these are people over the last 70, 80 years who have addressed the molecule to crystal problem. Robertson first tried to start correlating the crystal structure of condensed aromatic hydrocarbons. Basically, he defined them as things that stack on top of each other versus things that form a herringbone pattern where the molecules are inclined to each other. Kitagorodsky talked about the close packing theory, and he says molecules are put together so that they economize in terms of empty spaces between molecules. The best fit of molecules is what is obtained in the crystal. In my 1989 book, I spoke about anisotropy in the packing. By anisotropy, I mean anisotropic interactions like hydrogen bonds and stuff like that. So you see, there are 2 schools of thought. The same thing was expressed by the late Professor Etter a few years after that. And so there are 2 schools of thought. One says that it is only close packing that puts things together. We don't really care so much about the interactions. The other one says that the interactions are all important, and it is they who define how the structures come together. Reality probably lies somewhere in the middle, or probably involves a bit of both. Now look at this. This is bromocubane carboxylic acid. Now you see something very interesting in this crystal structure. If you look at the carboxyl groups, here you have this in the syn conformation, and then here you have it in the anti conformation. Now this is indeed very rare, when you have both syn and anti in the same crystal structure. But the answer to our benzoic acid, acetic acid problem can be immediately appreciated. Now look, here we have the OHO hydrogen bonds. So this part looks like acetic acid. No dimers but an extended catamer of molecules. But now look at this. You have a cubyl CH group forming a weak hydrogen bond, a CHO hydrogen bond with carbonyl oxygen. And we all know that because of the ring strain, the acidity of the hydrogen atom in the cubane ring is higher, is activated. So the cubyl CH is ideally well equipped to form a nice CHO hydrogen bond. So it is that supporting the auxiliary interaction, the CHO interaction, that allows this crazy syn-anti catamer to form. And then the answer you are also getting about acetic acid. Sure, in the acetic acid crystal structure, you have a CHO hydrogen bond from the methyl hydrogen. So by just looking at the strong interactions, the OHO, you cannot predict the crystal structure of acetic acid versus benzoic acid. When you also take into account the weaker interaction, then what looked very mysterious and unknown suddenly starts looking very simple. So in other words, you have to look at the interactions very, very closely. Now we are still in the first step of crystal engineering in terms of trying to obtain an understanding of interactions in the context of crystal packing. That's what I am doing here. So the message of this strong hydrogen bond, weak hydrogen bond story is that you've got to look at hydrogen bonds both strong and weak. You've got to look at all the interactions really, because now we are getting to the essence of the problem. This molecule to crystal issue is what is called an emergent problem. And using the language of complex systems, you can say the connections between molecular and crystal structures is not a simple one, it's a complex one. So then you have to look at a large number of interactions. And you've got to look at the thing in quite close detail. I think it's giving an echo suddenly. Is he fooling around with it? Okay. So we have to really look at the entire gamut of interactions before you start beginning to appreciate these crystal structures. And this is a characteristic of all these complex systems. A complexity or emergence or whatever they say. That you can't easily look at the connection between cause and effect. It's because we are not looking closely enough. And so that's what we have to do with crystal structures generally. And see, we are talking about very simple molecules here. Benzoic acid, acetic acid, so on and so on. And so this illustrates another general issue that talks about this complex system. A simple molecule can give a very complicated crystal structure. A very complex molecule can give a rather simple crystal structure. So there is no connection between complexity of a molecular structure and complexity of a crystal structure, or vice versa. So these are all two different beasts altogether. This is something that any practitioner of crystal engineering must appreciate right from the beginning. So I have stated the whole thing. The core problem is that crystal structures cannot be predicted easily from molecular structures, at least not with a modular approach, that is the functional group approach. The behavior, now look at this, the behavior of a functional group in a molecule during crystallization depends on the nature and positioning of all the other functional groups in the molecule. Nature and positioning. Therefore, crystal structures are not related to molecular structures in simple ways. They are emergent properties. Suppose I look at the crystal structure of phenol, then I look at the crystal structure of, say, nitrobenzene. The crystal structure of para-nitrophenol may bear absolutely no relationship to that of phenol and that of nitrobenzene. It gets worse than that. The crystal structure of 2-nitrophenol, 3-nitrophenol, 4-nitrophenol may all look very different from each other. There will be some similarities. There will be hydrogen bonding. But you see, for example, with the hydrogen bonding in these nitrophenols, will it be between OH and OH groups, or will it be between OH and NO2? So by bringing in the NO2, I mean organic chemists, synthetic organic chemists do have something called proximal group effects or near neighbor effects. But these proximal group effects in molecular synthesis are at a much more milder and easily understandable level. Here you can get totally wide divergences between molecules that somewhat look the same. So thinking molecular and thinking supramolecular is something that is quite different, and so one should be comfortable again dealing with both sets of phenomena. So failure of the functional group approach and variable interplay of kinetics, this is another one. This kinetics and thermodynamics. Everything may be set up all right, but you may get a crystal structure that is kinetically favored, or you may get something that is thermodynamically favored. And there is no way of predicting easily, a priori, which one you are going to get. So this creates another issue.